in a massacre! Monster Madness!
Happy Halloween! Today we're going to talk about, I guess the best appropriate way to end with is just to talk about Halloween, just what the season means to you, and how do you celebrate Halloween. And I know one of the big ways we celebrate Halloween is Monster Madness, so we should talk about Monster Madness a little bit.
Absolutely.
About the history, the future of it. So yeah, let's go. So how do you celebrate Halloween?
Well, I mean, we're getting a little old to be going out trick-or-treating and stuff, but I mean, I love doing that as a kid, but...
Well, I have a kid now, so trick-or-treating's coming back into my life now, so it's kind of interesting. It comes full circle like that.
But usually I still go to Halloween parties, and I go out to, events and things, and I still, to this day, like to get dressed up in a Halloween costume.
Oh, yeah.
Every year. I'm big into that,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like dressing up in Halloween costumes. I like going to Halloween parties. I like watching horror movies all through the month of October, and I like going out to horror attractions.
Yeah, let's go one by one. Yeah, haunted houses. So going to attractions and stuff.
Yeah, one that I've been to is the Penhurst Asylum.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which is...
It was a real asylum.
Yeah, that place is so creepy because it was like an insane asylum for children, I believe.
Yeah, and then they made it into a haunted house recently, which is really interesting.
Oh my god, that's one of the creepiest places I've ever been. I love doing that, and I mean, there's a ton of those
Bates
type of
Motel.
The Bates Motel. There's tons of attractions. There's one in New York that I want to go to. I think it's in Manhattan called Blood Manor. I've been wanting to go to that, and I know that down in Universal they do all kinds of horror stuff. The Six Flags Great Adventure has like the Fright Fest and all that. So all that kind of stuff. The whole month of October.
I always hear that the Universal Studios does the most amazing haunted houses. I always hear about that. I've never been, but yeah, haunted houses nowadays. I mean, the ones that we had when we were kids are nothing like they are now.
No.
I mean, before it would be like a big deal to go on a hayride, and like there would be just like
maybe a guy would pop out of the woods with a chainsaw, but that would be about the limit.
Yeah,
of it.
There'd be like some strobe lights here and there. There was all kinds of haunted houses, but they were very low scale. They were now they have ones where like there's animatronic monsters breathing fire at you, and like
absolutely.
Like now that they have great effects, and like Halloween has gotten bigger.
It's gotten bigger and it's gotten better,
which is great. I love it when things get better for once.
Right.
We always complain about how things suck now, but this is Halloween really picked it up. Yeah, haunted houses. I always feel like every year you got to go to one that you've been to before, and then go to one that you haven't been to. You know what I mean? Like to keep it fresh.
Oh, absolutely. I try to go to new. Exactly. I go to some of my favorites from previous years, but I always try to find a new one too to go to.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. I love dressing up in Halloween costumes. I mean, just the tradition of doing that is, it starts when you're a kid and you go out and you go trick or treating, but it's still fun to do today, like, because what other time of the year is it appropriate to go out in some kind of, like, if you want to dress up as like Darth Vader or something, you're probably not going to do that unless you're going to like a convention or it's Halloween time, and it's a fun thing to do, and it's something you don't get to do the rest of the year, which makes it special.
Yeah. And to me, it's a season. It's like the whole like fall season. I love when the air gets cooler and everything, and the color of the leaves change and everything.
Speaking of that, honestly, my favorite thing about the whole Halloween season and October is the smell of being outside.
Yeah.
There's a certain smell. And I don't know if it's everywhere in the world like this, but we live on the East Coast, and when it comes fall time, there's something in the air that time of year, and it only lasts for a couple weeks.
Yeah,
and I don't know what it is. It's impossible to describe. There's just this sense that it's October, and it's very, and that's my favorite thing about the whole October time.
It goes into Thanksgiving too. Like I love Thanksgiving just as well, and it's kind of like a different different kind of holiday, but it's still kind of wrapped up in the whole fall thing.
Yeah, and that's
So going to a Halloween store, that's always a must. You gotta at least once.
Didn't even think of that.
And here's the thing about Halloween stores is that there's really good ones, and then there's just like
There's ones that
average
suck.
ones. And every year it's always a complete crapshoot because they never open in the same places because it's a seasonal thing. So you'll never know where to find them every year.
Okay.
But there's a
I feel like... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, Spirit Halloween I think is one of the best ones I found recently. It used to be Halloween Adventure. That used to be like the best, but now I think Spirit, it's like you go in and there's just like stuff everywhere. And I love it when you're surrounded by like... It's almost like you're walking through a haunted house because the way everything's set up, you have like the creatures and stuff are like all like moving.
Yeah.
You got all the animatronic things, are all set up.
I feel like there's the Halloween stores that care, and then there's the Halloween stores that don't care. Some of the stores, I feel like they put them there because they're trying to make money because it's that time of the year and they're trying to sell costumes and whatever, and they're just trying to make a living. And then there's stores where the employees really get into it and they dress up the store a lot and they make the store awesome. Those are the good stores.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I like going to.
And sometimes it's just a matter of like what they have available. Like if you go to the dollar store, they're gonna have just some shitty like masks and stuff. But but you go to like one of the big like Halloween chains, they got like all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely on the checklist. You gotta walk into a Halloween store, even if you don't buy anything, to just walk in and be surrounded by everything.
I can explain it like this. If you go into a Halloween store and all you see are racks of costumes, and that's about all there is in the store, that's a crappy Halloween
Or how about when it's
shop.
just pictures of the costumes, so you have to like
right.
you have to like order them and everything.
Yeah, that's crap. I want to walk in and there's got to be like fog machines and skeletons.
Yeah.
Basically like
There's
this kind of shit like
there's
everywhere.
There's got to be like fog like that.
Get a fog machine gun. Oh, blew it right in my fucking face, you asshole.
It's I killed him. He's dead. Carving a jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, that's another great tradition. I gotta say with the pumpkins, I love pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
So that's a part of October that I always can't wait for because I will only eat pumpkin pie if it's October.
Yeah.
It has to be. And but I don't make the pumpkin pie. I buy the shit from the grocery store or whatever. But carving the actual pumpkins is so much fun. I don't particularly like digging out the guts that much. That's the part that's not that fun. But carving the faces and coming up with...
You just want to hurry up and carve the face.
Yeah, I want to carve the face, exactly. And carving faces. I'm not very good at it. I like to draw, and I feel like I'm an artistic person. But as far as... I've never been very good at doing like 3D art. And... So I'll draw the face on there, but when it actually comes to carving it out, I have a hard time with it. But you're actually pretty good at it. And going back to Roseanne again, another thing, the Roseanne show had really great carved pumpkins. Always, I think during the end credits, they'd always have those awesome carved
Roseanne's
pumpkins
face.
of all the characters.
And then they started doing it like in Home Improvement, follow after.
Yeah.
Where Wilson, they'd have like the fence, on the pumpkin,
Right.
Also, watching a horror movie with audience, I think is like...
That's maybe the number one. I mean...
It's up there. You know why? What's strange, though? It seems to be one of the hardest ones for me because it's like... It's kind of tough to block out a weekend or just like a Saturday night or something when you can get people over and actually watch a movie. And like the thing is, like, you gotta... It seems like usually there isn't time to watch a whole movie. Like even at a Halloween party, it's like to kind of organize it, to get everybody to sit down and watch one thing. It doesn't happen that often.
When you have a party, people want to be socializing and having fun. So to sit and do that, I find it best during the October Halloween season. I'll watch a horror movie like with my girlfriend, or I'll watch one with like one other person. Yeah, those are the best experiences usually because it's just two people. You're not looking to have a party, and you can really just focus on the movie.
Yeah, it's got to be a few. Sometimes it's got to be like a few number, but like a few number of people. But even that, it's hard. I find to get the time to do that. But also there's like if a horror movie's playing in a theater, it's always great to be able to like go to a theater and actually see it, with a big audience.
It is great, yeah.
Yeah. So it's either in a theater or at your own place. And I love it when theaters like the Colonial Theater, the Blob Theater in Phoenixville.
Oh, they'll actually play like 35mm films.
Yeah, we saw
awesome.
Dracula on 35mm there.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so I love it when they'll replay old movies.
Yeah.
decorating the house, of course, you got to do it. So
got to get the Betzel die cuts and put them up on
Beastel, whatever they
however that's pronounced. It's the old die cuts where it's like a cat or a skeleton or a witch, and they're like circular, and you hang them up. And those are just classic. They've been around forever. Yeah. Everybody remembers those, at least from our generation.
Yeah, that's what I had too back then. It was just like those were the only Halloween decorations. Like we said, how the stores got better and everything.
Because they those would be cheap. You could buy them like at the grocery store.
It's just like paper. It's like a flat thing. It's not like a whole kind of like
thing like this. Yeah.
Getting this kind of stuff like this all started coming out later.
Elaborate.
Yeah, but even this stuff is old. Like this, I had since like I was like 15 or something like this.
But I think what you're saying is the majority of people wouldn't put a lot of money into those kind of decorations, or might not have the money. But those kind of decorations, they're cheap. They're just pieces of paper. So it's like for a couple $, you can get a whole set of the Betzel die cuts and decorate, your kitchen and your your living room and stuff like that. With
now it's very nostalgic to me. Now it's like because in Halloween now there's so many gory decorations where it's scary. It's like a skeleton that's like all decaying, and now it's. I like kind of remembering the innocent decorations.
The decorations are
just
like.
Seeing a cat and a witch that are just paper that are.
Those are my favorite Halloween decorations.
They're
the cheapest ones, but they're the best.
They're just so classic. Like, it's not Halloween until you see one of those things. Even though I spent so many years without those things, now I'm starting to go back to look at those again and try to find the old classic decorations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you got me into them again because you were like.
I was decorating my place, and I was like putting those up, and you're like, oh my god, those things, and I'm like, yeah, the Betzel die cuts. You're like, oh, those are what those are called. Yeah.
Trying to find them.
Yeah, those are definitely classic and bring back the nostalgia of Halloween when we were kids.
Now, taking a walk outside to experience the fall colors every once in a while, take a walk outside to just
that's also a huge part of it. Getting outside, getting off your damn computer, like everybody who's watching this video right now sitting on the damn computer.
We're doing it too.
Yeah,
we're all sitting here.
We are, but it's October. Go outside, walk around, like smell the air, experience fall.
Yeah. It's tough when you're working on Monster Madness.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well,
uploading this video to YouTube today.
but that's also how we celebrate, which is why we'll get into that. But a couple other things. Halloween party. I think we kind of mentioned that already. But just going on my list is trying to either go to somebody's party or to have your own, just trying to at some point go to a room where everybody can dress in costumes.
Sure, and it should be a social occasion.
Gozer the Traveler. He will come in one of the pre-chosen forms. During the rectification of the Valdrani, the Traveler came as a large and moving torb. Then, during the third reconciliation of the last of the McKettrick supplicants, they chose for him a new form, that of a giant slore. Many shoves and zools knew what it was to be roasted in the depths of a slore that day, I can tell you.
Trick-or-treating, which we already talked about. But and I told you about how it's coming back into my life because now my daughter, I'll take her trick-or-treating.
Right,
so.
that's great.
Yeah, trick-or-treating, big thing. So that was the checklist. We got through everything.
Do you have any trick-or-treating memories when you were a kid? Like anything that happened?
Oh yeah, I mean,
like that you can think of.
Like anything weird or just like anything?
Any stories about trick or treating?
I just always remember the neighborhood where we used to trick or treat all the time, and they would always be night. You know what was weird is like I kind of have blurry memories of trick or treating in the day and trick or treating at night. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when it switched, and I feel like it switched back and forth.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah,
and I've heard a lot. I think things are different now. I think there's like laws and stuff now where people got to be in. When I was a kid, when I was like 10 years old, 8 years old and stuff, I would go out with my friends and we would be out until like 11 o'clock at night and whatever, just going around, and people still had I was knocking on people's doors at like 10:30 at night getting candy, and it was like, well, it's Halloween, it's night, ghosts and goblins. It was like expected. And now it's like, 9 o'clock, like people are going to bed. It's like,
yes, I'm not really sure, because the thing is, I remember both. I remember doing it in the day and at night, but the memories that I'm most fond of are at night.
Me too.
And I just remember, like, you know, you're walking out in the street at night and you see all these people in costumes. And one of the things that always interested me was knocking on neighbors' doors that you don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I never got to know who lives in this house.
Right.
You knock on the door, and I remember one time, it was kind of weird thinking back, but I had this crazy gorilla costume that I don't even know what it was. It was like a gorilla, but I put on a top hat and I had like a cane and everything. And I did this whole crazy thing. I had like these gloves, these like monster. I just threw a bunch of shit together. And somebody was like, they opened up their door and they were like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's so funny. And like, oh, here, come on in. And actually, like, I went in the person's house and everything and was like, he like wanted to show my costume to his wife. And then I thought about it later. I'm like, dude, some stranger just like invited me into his house. Like, but as a kid, you're so naive and you're not thinking of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do remember one time I knocked on somebody's door and it was this old woman. She comes out with this tray of candy and she wasn't in costume or anything. She was just a weird looking old woman.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like just this kind of creepy woman.
Yeah.
And the candy wasn't in wrappers or anything. It was kind of like some.
Oh, like take it out of her hand
like,
and eat it?
No, it was like it was on a tray, but it was like some
okay.
homemade chocolate or something that wasn't in wrappers. And usually, you know how everything you get is like some kind of store-bought candy.
Yeah, sure.
And even with the store-bought candy, how you always have to have the adults check it for you later to make sure nothing was And I come back with it, and I remember telling my cousin actually, and I was like, this weird old woman, like, she gave us this candy, and he was like, okay, well, don't eat that, and threw it away, and was like, where was this at? Like, whose house was this? And then I remember it kind of starting like this, like we were almost trying to figure out like who it was, what happened, but yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of tricks or treats, I want to ask you about both. The treats.
Yeah.
What was your favorite treat to get if you were going trick or treating?
Oh, okay. It was probably the Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, I like the little crackle bars. You would get. You remember like the little bars, and they'd be wrapped up. So that's your treats. Now, as far as tricks, did you ever get involved with the whole Mischief Night?
Oh, Mischief Night? Not really, no. I mean...
Now, Mischief Night is not actually Halloween, though. That's the night before?
It's the night before. Now, actually, there's some history in that, though, because originally, the guy's name, I think, was Guy Fawkes, something like that. It was like this guy who... it was like some kind of arsonist or some guy who, like, did a lot of bad stuff. He did a lot of damage, and then some people... I guess some people somehow celebrated that in a weird way, like, where they would kind of... On that night, they would do like bad things, and this was like back in like I think like the Great Depression era. So like
the 30s.
Yeah, like kids were throwing rocks through windows and stuff, like really bad stuff. Damaging property, everything, and then eventually, then they decided to make because Mischief Night I think was originally October 31st, and then they decide, okay, well, let's kind of take all the different things that happened in the holiday, like kind of how there's different parts. There's like Samhain, Samhain was like this old thing, and then there's like all these other kind of holidays that were around that were kind of spooky in a way and scary.
Yeah.
They put them all together, and they like basically they invented Halloween around that time as a distraction so that kids wouldn't be damaging property. So instead they'd give them something else to do. Like, here, how about instead of that, how about we'll give you candy, come knock on the door, and they made up this holiday, but then...
Who is they?
Like, I guess just all the town, the people who get together and they come up with this. And now they made Mischief Night. Well, okay, if it can't be the 31st, let's make it the night before.
Right.
But it's less than what it was then. Now it's kind of like toilet paper, eggs maybe, stuff like that. So it is a little, it's usually less destructive now than it was, but it's still kind of just like it's just a thing,
Right.
But no, I never got involved in that really. But I remember my friends sometimes doing things like, oh, let's go and crack an egg on that guy's door or whatever.
Right.
Like, it was like some little things like that where I never actually participated in it, but I remember it going on and everything. Yeah. So, Monster Madness.
Monster Madness. Monster Madness... Let's talk about everything that's
Let's
Monster
give a little
Madness.
special, because the one of the biggest ways, and this is the final thing on the checklist, is Monster Madness. That's been a tradition 9 years now.
That's our tradition.
I celebrate Halloween by doing Monster Madness.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things. It's sort of like become, it's become my own tradition too. And I guess I'll back up, like how this all started is that I mean, it's kind of just like, I mean, now the way I look at it, it's more of a way to celebrate Halloween with more people out there. Like, there's people out there watching, so it's just like people in the world who I've never met. It's now, I feel like I'm celebrating Halloween on a more global scale, a World Wide Web scale, basically. It's, I guess if you really traced it back, it started as a book idea when I was a kid. I wanted to educate more people in classic horror films because at that time...
Do you know what the book was?
Yeah, I think it's just called Classic Monsters.
Okay.
But I have some pictures of it, too. I have the book. Well, what was left, it never got finished. But I used to write up these little reviews of all these horror movies and kind of talk about, like, a history of it. Like, I wanted to tell people about the history of horror.
Yeah.
And because back then...
When was that?
It was before the internet. This was, like, when I was, like, 12 years old or something.
Okay, so, like, 92?
Yeah, starting in 92. I think I was still writing it into 95, I think. But I basically felt like I was the only person who liked these movies because, you know, like you said, even then, most people just didn't care about black and white movies.
Yeah.
And I always felt kind of like I really want to expose these movies to more people, so I was trying to write that book. And I feel like now I've accomplished that finally with Monster Madness and in video form, which you wouldn't even imagine back then. A video on the internet, like the internet wasn't even a thing. Like it's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
I recorded videos in 93, and this is going from the book to like an actual video thing.
Okay.
And it's on the site too. You can see it. Monster Madness 1993.
Right.
Wasn't called Monster Madness. That was like a retroactive title I gave it because it's very appropriate. And it was the same thing. It was just me on camera talking about horror movies. Mm-hmm. So even though this is the ninth
that the
one,
video where you talk about the Frankenstein's monster and his name?
Yeah.
And the monster's name?
Yeah, I was like, it's not Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster.
But you finally got over that.
You know, it's like, you can't beat him, join him.
Well, when I used to talk to you...
Yeah.
When we were in college, around the time when I first met you, you were still at the stage in your life where if somebody said called the monster Frankenstein instead of the monster, you still legitimately got pissed. And in the years since then, you've become okay with it.
Yeah, it's just quicker to say Frankenstein than Frankenstein's monster every time. You know how many times I've been asked, "Oh, what is the monster's name then?"
Yeah.
He doesn't have a name. You know, it's like everybody wants there to be a name. I think that was the problem. If they called him Fred, then it'd be fine. But you know. But
people used to ask that all the time to Leonard Nimoy before he died. They would say, "What's Mr. Spock's first name?"
Oh, Spock's the last.
Yeah, because
see, I didn't even think of
Mr.
that.
Spock. You know, like Mr. Scott. It was like Montgomery Scott.
Yeah.
Do you know what Spock's first name was?
No.
Leonard Nimoy always said that it was Harold, but he was kidding.
Harold Spock.
Harold Spock.
Just like everybody always needed to know the Mario brothers' first names, Mario and Luigi Mario. Nobody ever wanted to know that.
I remember for Halloween one year when I was in elementary school, there was a kid who had black hair that looked kind of like Spock's hair, and when Halloween time came around, I was dressed as Link from The Legend of Zelda, and he was dressed as Mr. Spock. And I was an asshole. He had the Spock ears on, and I came up behind him and I like ripped the ears off, just like as a joke. And then I gave it back to him, and he started to cry because apparently the ears took a really long time to put on. I thought that they were just like really quick, like pop them on and off. But don't be an asshole like motherfucker Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do tricks, but there's a line, you know. But exactly. No, I could see that. You thought it was just something you pull off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It wasn't meant to be malicious.
Yeah. And talking about the future of Monster Madness, I feel like it's always going to keep going in some form, but I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going to happen from year to year. We're making it up year to year as we go on. It depends a lot on how much time we have and everything.
Well, wait. And, so Monster Madness started with these books.
Yeah, let's keep going, yeah.
And then it went to, you would watch Monster Vision was the second step in the equation, was it not?
Well, that was in there too. Like, I mean, going back to TNT's Monster Vision, it's kind of like some kind of resurrection of that. Like, there needs to be some kind of Halloween marathon type thing that involves seeing horror movies or talking about horror movies.
Right.
Like, horror movies are such a big part of it.
Because there's not really much on television now. Like when we were teenagers, there was Monster Vision and there was other shows on television that would show all kinds of monster movies and marathons and stuff, and that just really is there much of that anymore? There's not a lot of that anymore.
Sven
right?
Gulli is still on the air.
Oh, okay.
Every Saturday night at 10 o'clock on MeTV, Sven Gulli is
all right,
still
well,
on.
he's got it going.
And Elvira came back for a little bit, like a couple years ago or something.
Well, that's good.
And
I mean,
so,
hopefully more of these things will come back again. That would be nice.
So that's what I like. In fact, I'd even like to do some kind of horror hosting thing myself. Like, I know I'm not like, I'm hosting this, I guess, but I'm not like in character. I'd like to do like Dr. Rolfenstein, you know.
Oh, can I be Igor?
Sure, yeah, I'll whip you.
Igor! I will get the film master.
That'll teach you to disobey.
And I remember you and I having a conversation, and you're like, I want to do this thing where it's like a video every day of the month, but I'm doing all this other shit, and like, I'm probably not gonna have time. And I remember having a conversation with you, and I was like, you got to do it. Like, it's such a great idea. You got to do it. And you're like, all right, I'll do it. And you went and you did it somehow.
That was I think that was the only year where you weren't involved.
I wasn't involved yet. No.
Yeah, it was. I just did the whole thing. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we were talking about doing a Godzilla marathon. 'Cause I was like, you know what? I'm glad that I got to talk about the Universal monsters and everything. Now let's do Godzilla.
I remember having a conversation with you after the first Monster Madness, and we talked, and I said, are you going to do Monster Madness again next year? And you're like, well, I don't know. It was so much work and all that. And I was like, well, if you were going to do it next year, what would you do? And you're like, well, I've always wanted to review all the Godzilla movies. And I was like, well, what if I edit it for you, and you write it, and you watch the movies and do all that, and I'll pick up some of the work for you. So that's when I got involved, not only with Monster Madness, but that's where I really started to get involved with Cinemassacre heavily. Although I had worked on things with you even dating back to college, like it came from Beyond the Toilet and stuff. Godzillathon was my first real big thing that I started, and that's when I started helping editing with Cinemassacre videos, and I also didn't know a hell of a lot about Godzilla before that. I had seen one or two Godzilla movies before that, but I learned through the process of doing Godzillathon. I watched all the movies, you know, and everything at that time, and I learned. That's when I learned to love Godzilla, and I started to realize, working on these monster reviews, I'm actually learning about the movies while I'm editing them and watching them.
Me too. Like some of them that I haven't seen, you know.
And for me, it was a real like eye-opening experience. Like, wow, not only am I like helping to edit these videos, but I'm actually learning about these horror movies at the same time. I felt like it's been an education in horror for me to work with you.
So for us as well as other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been educational for us as well.
Yeah. And over the years, we kind of went back and forth. Like some years we would both edit them, and there were some years where it was entirely you editing. Other years where it was it's usually it would be, a lot of times it would be like you edit them, and then you'd give me the videos, and then I'll make changes to them. A lot of times.
And some years we'd go back and forth. There was certain years where I think at the 80s-a-thon year you were really busy that year, and I picked up a lot of the slack that year. That was
the only year I think where it wasn't 31. It was actually every other day instead of every
we were
day.
struggling to get it done that year.
We were really struggling, yeah.
And
I was filming the movie that year.
So that's why that year was less. But a lot of the other years we'd work like you'd work on some of the videos, I'd work on some of the videos. Yeah. So it's really been a joint effort between the both of us. And I would say for the majority of Monster Madness, just so everybody knows, James has been the one to write all the videos. I mostly just help with the editing. I might have had some input here and there as far as when we would watch a movie. You know, I might say something and be like, I might use that comment in there. But usually Monster Madness is James's vision, and you know, you created the idea of it. So I've been happy to be able to come along and help, and I'm also honored to be able to show up and do this year. So
first time 9 years.
Yeah. So there you go.
So and actually this is really helpful, I think, too. The fact that we're doing it like this, unscripted, because writing the script takes a lot of time, and it actually, over the years, it's gotten more and more time consuming.
Yeah.
It's gotten harder because in the beginning, I would do movies that I was very familiar with. I was so familiar with a lot of those movies that I wouldn't even have to watch them. But I'm starting to, and while we'll never run out of horror movies to do, we are running out of movies that I can do that quickly, because now I have to watch movies more. I have to refresh my memory on them. And a lot of times I'm doing ones that I haven't even seen at all. So of course I got to watch them if I'm going to write a review on it.
Right.
So that's 31 movies to watch. Sometimes it's even more when there's more than one like clumped together in one thing.
Right.
So it's basically like every year we do this, it's a miracle that it gets done. You know, we're always in a rush to get these done.
Yeah, there's been hundreds of these videos now, and now it's to the point where it's like, it's just, you know, we have to actually watch the movies that we've never seen before and then write the script, where when you started it was like, well, I'm going to do Dracula, I'm going to do the Wolfman, I'm going to do Freddy Krueger. It's like all movies that you knew backwards and forwards because you've seen them a million times. So moving forward...
like even the ones we talked about, like Saw and The Ring, I had to watch them again. You know, I had to be like, okay, well, let me watch this movie.
Movies that you had seen, but you were a little less familiar with.
Yeah, or that I seen once when they came out, but it was like, oh, I got to see it again to
refresh your memory.
And all those hours of watching all those movies, it's crazy. You know, it's roughly like a 6-month project on and off to try to get all these done for videos that get blasted all out in 1 month.
Yeah.
So
going back to previous years when we were doing like Camp Cult and like all those, you know, Sequelathon and Sequelathon 2 and all that, I remember it would be October would be done, let's say, and then there'd be November, and then there'd be Christmas, and we'd make some Christmas videos. Come like January, we would start in January starting to get, okay, what's going to be the list for next year? And then from like the whole rest of the year, really.
A lot of times we have to find the DVDs too to watch.
Oh my
them.
God, I have like over 5,000 DVDs. It's insane because you got to remember, not that there's been that many reviews, but it's like if James is talking about a movie, then he might talk about another movie and another movie and another movie and another movie that he's you know referencing other movies. So not only if he's reviewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he might mention, you know, The Wizard of Oz. So it's like, oh shit, I gotta have that clip in there, and you know, so it's all these fucking. I ended up with just piles and piles of DVDs because I was editing this, and you know how many hours I spent capturing these movies? Endless. So my life became capturing movies, and the whole thing's crazy. So in the middle of doing AVGN episodes and Board James and all the other top 10 videos and all this, the whole entire year we're working on Monster Madness videos. So it's this gigantic process that...
a lot of times there's a decision where, like, could you spend this time on Monster Madness, or would you spend the time on more videos throughout the year instead of all in October? So it's like kind of like somehow trying to balance it all, and it's like, you know, what do you do? Like, you just gotta like...
Because you gotta understand, it's just James and I working on these videos. There's no other people involved in making the videos. And for two people, we're balancing several different web series, and it's a lot to do.
And with a kid, it's 1,000 times harder now.
Right.
And now a lot of times, like, I want to spend more time, you know, taking my daughter to a hayride or something. And when it becomes like, see, there's my phone chiming right there. There's just something. So it's all cool. But it's like you know, you can't let your personal time suffer either. So if it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna take her to this weekend, it's like, sorry, I gotta work on I can't do it. I gotta work on those videos. Like, that's a problem. So it's like I have to somehow balance it all with personal life too, and that's really, really hard.
Because when you have a kid, not that I would know because I don't have any kids, but when people have kids, the kid is only a kid for so long, and then they grow up, and then they move out, and then they just start driving and all that, and it's like you want to be with your kid when they're a kid. And
I want to see Halloween through her eyes.
Exactly.
Now it's like I want to, you know, let her have an awesome Halloween as a kid, the way I did.
And if you're off spending the entire day editing a video about Saw, you're not spending your time with the kid. So it's a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's like a little bit of a reality check on how hard it is to do these. But we definitely want to continue it. And I know next year is the 10th year, so I feel like we should do something special. And if you like these videos of me and Mike, we'll do more stuff like this too. Because these were really fun to do. But
it's a lot easier to do unscripted content than scripted content. It takes less time, and it's more manageable. By the way, just doing this... this is very different than the scripted videos, but this is actually really nice to be able to really give our opinions. We're giving our opinions here about Halloween and everything, and I really feel like this is although this is different than the other years where it was scripted. This is a nice change of pace.
Everything's always. I feel like it's always going to evolve or change in some way, and even if it gets so crazy in life that maybe some year we have to cut down to less than 31, which we've done before when we did the 80s-a-thon one. Like maybe it might have to be like less than 31 or something. There'll be ways we could still keep it going, and I'd like to see something one day where I can do a horror host like I was talking about, but it might be like horror hosting like on a weekend or something with showing movies and then talking in between them. I mean, it'd have to be like public domain movies unless some network would hire me or something. I could be like, Joe Bob Briggs is, one of my big inspirations for that. But times were different then when Joe Bob was on the air.
That's true. It's a different world.
Yeah, the network was a lot looser and let him do what he wanted to do and stuff.
But you can always do whatever you want to do here on YouTube.
Exactly. So that's what's great. I feel like we've already done it. We've accomplished, having a horror show. Halloween's going nowhere. I feel like Monster Madness will always exist in some form. We have no idea what it'll be like 10 years from now or what. We have no idea. But, anything left to say?
So one way or the other, we're going to keep Monster Madness going. But just to be clear, we might... I guess what we're saying is we're probably going to be changing the format up a bit.
Yeah, maybe. We don't know.
Yeah. So
we don't know right now.
Yeah.
But we're going to finish this year, which is almost over now in a few moments. Great. I love Halloween. I love feeling like I feel at home when I'm surrounded by skeletons and glowing lanterns and shit.
You have anything else to say?
I have one last thing to say.
Okay.
Enjoy a creepy Board James video tonight.
Oh.
After midnight. Halloween is going after hours.
Oh!